humorous. Spirit can be fun. Spirit can be very humorous, by the way. And so that was that. And we kind of ended every morning meditation with, if there was any family issues, they got brought up or taken care of, or if anybody had something to say or share, it was open to the group. And then we would go out and watch the rising sun. We would have 1 cup of coffee in the morning before meditation. So everybody got up around 3. We either took a cold dip in the swimming pool or the shower. We believed in doing the cold water. And
do you still do that?
Actually, not every day, but I find myself doing it a lot. If I get up and I feel groggy or just want to get refreshed, I will jump into a cold shower.
I hate that. I hate the cold water. I'm the worst at that.
Well, I got to tell you, it does at first take the breath away a little bit, but it, you can tell where your nerve force is by how you can do a cold dip or a cold shower. And that's one of the reasons we did a cold shower. It builds your nerve force. But there is a reason that we did everything. It was quite amazing.
Yeah, I would get kicked out the first day. I can't take the cold water.
No, you wouldn't.
But now,
me.
What about your dietary habits today? Have they remained the same?
Pretty much, yes. Let me
Okay.
finish the day, and I'll get into that, if you don't mind.
No, sure.
Yeah, okay. And then people they got ready to go to work. We had shifts at the Source Restaurant. That's where everybody worked. We had people that did other things. We had jewelry makers. We had people that designed and made our clothes. We did everything we did by ourselves, for ourselves. Our fashion, our dress, the way we dressed actually became very popular in the now. We've been written up in Vogue several times. A lot of things were inspired by people watching the Source family and saw how we were dressed. And we had our music, Yoho at 13, and there were other forms of family bands that got together, and they would do their music. We did homeschooling, so there was, certain people that did the homeschooling, and there was people that took care of business. So we had a full life during the day, and we all went to bed, early enough because we had to get up early, and that just kind of was our day, or whatever happened. We were open to the spontaneity of allowing each day to bring what it brought.
Now, were there any people who would sneak off and use alcohol or other kind of drugs or anything like that, or stealing amongst each other, any kind of problems like that?
No, we shared everything. There was no stealing. Sneaking off, I would say no, but however, I have found out over the years, after talking with people in the now, that, people kind of did a few little naughties, but which I was very surprised about. But I would say a few is a few. It was not the majority.
Now your experience,
there was just it wasn't just our protocol. It was kind of the protocol of the 60s and 70s. We weren't the only ones, believing in that crossover that most people did with their food and their dress and their way of thinking and going more natural and getting tuned into nature. That wasn't just us. So it was a very easy thing to do. It was a mindset. It was a cultural mindset at that time. The yogis were doing it. It was not something that was unheard of. Let me put it that way.
How about sugar? Processed sugar. Were you using sugar?
No, we weren't doing anything like refined or pasteurized or sugar. No.
Okay. Now, you seem like it was a very positive experience in your life, but when you look back, were there any negatives that you'd like to point out?
Okay, let me just, good point. Everybody, when we started doing the book and getting like some of the other family members' opinions are involved, or just, in a daily conversation, because everybody was dispersed. At a certain point, everybody left and went on with their own lives and dispersed. But we've all kind of kept in touch and used to have a few family reunions. But what we found out was everybody left with their own reality. Everybody's got their own story, their own way of seeing what happened in their own experience, which is rightly so. It took me a long time to understand that, because I thought everybody saw everything the way I did. And it was actually a big shock for not only me, but a few of us, that we didn't all see things the same way or have the same experience. So for me, there was no downside or negativity. And I'm still working within that mindset because of having the archives. To save the legacy, we did the book, the documentary, so I've been totally involved in it. And holding that thread and basically never stepped out of it, if that makes sense. I'm living within the frequency still of that with Father Yod. And he still is my boyfriend, for lack of another word. And it's just been a very, that's just the way it's been. That's the way it is for me. However, other people will have their own side of the story, and some of it, now that they looked back on it, was not all that positive. When you look back in a time frame where something was happening and held in that time frame, some of it just doesn't fit into looking at it in this time frame, looking back. It doesn't fit. But at that time it did. And it was something we all agreed to. And it was nothing like really bad or negative, It's just like certain people didn't think that maybe it was as glamorous as some of us thought it was, for some whatever reason. Does that make sense?
But you would acknowledge that some people have come out of this and they feel it was a bad experience for them.
Not bad, but was not all that glamorous or positive. Okay, let's take the men having more than one woman. At that time, everybody agreed to it and was fine because that's what we were doing. Now some people think, no, that wasn't right. Or I felt like I might have had to have done it because that's what everybody was doing.
And how about the stories of underage girls being at the...
Well, good point. Thank you for bringing that up. The thing about underage girls, first of all, these kids were 12, 13. They were hitting the streets before they even joined the Source family. Nobody came in a virgin. There was one virgin that I know of, and he was a man. So these kids were already on the street, living another lifestyle to begin with. And most of these young kids that came in, 13, 14, 15, their parents knew where they were, and most of the parents were glad to know where their kids were, that they were clean, they were getting fed, and they knew where they were. So, and even before the Source family, the mentality of the 60s was, one of the good things about that whole time frame was people started relating soul to soul. They didn't even ask how old you were. They didn't care. They didn't ask who your parents were, how much money you had, what did they do, what are you doing. That was not even the MO of the 60s. You can ask anybody that. So when people came into the family, it was, you were seen on a soul level. You were seen on a different level. So it's kind of hard to talk about that now and then back then, where there was two different mentalities happening, and that's a lot of some, maybe the negativity that people are questioning now from that time frame with some of the kids that came in younger.
Okay. Now, in the documentary, there's a scene where it talks about a stillbirth, where there was, you believe it was a miracle. So, but besides that incident, were there other miracles that you could attribute to your?
There was daily occurrences that were, I would say, I would like to find another word besides miracle, because it was kind of like when you live in tune with nature and spirit, stuff happens that some people might think, oh, God, that's a miracle.
Mm.
They were, and Father he said very quickly, he says, this is not the time to be doing stuff like that, miracles and stuff like that. He says that's not going to be happening. But, yeah, there was a lot of things that you could look at and go, wow, that was definitely divinely happened. And there was a lot of things that I could probably, bring up.
Could you give us a couple examples?
Well, I'm trying to think.
Okay.
I'm 77 now.
I know.
Help. Yeah, and they were just so everyday natural occurrence. It was, but of course, well, he brought the first birth in the family was Solomon, and that was the stillborn you were talking about.
Right.
And he actually had his name already on a piece of paper in his pocket. And he already knew that was who it was going to be before he was born. And he did breathe life into him. And he actually, I think this is in the film, he said, he did fall to his knees and made a plea to God. He said, dear God, if you let this child be born, I will speak nothing but the word of God. And from then on, he did. He spoke nothing but the word of God. He stayed in spirit.
Have you stayed in touch with that young child?
Yeah, he's here on one of the islands. The kids, the wonderful thing about the kids is the kids stay in touch with each other, and they stay in touch. They call many of us aunties and uncles. Most of them will say to their parents, like even my daughter said to me, she goes, Mom, that was your life experience, that was your time frame, and that's yours. That's not mine. But I respect that for you. And they're all, allowing us to have what we had. And they respect, the people that were in the family. A lot of the kids do. They stay in touch. We stay in touch with the kids, and they stay in touch with us. That doesn't mean they necessarily go for what happened or they're living their life that way, like the multiple women.
Right.
My daughter's, that's a hard one for her, that I was one of 14 wives. It's, but like she said, that was I'm giving that to you, that's yours, and I'll do my life my way.
So there came a time when you believed that Yehovah was God.
We did, but you know what? It was because we're all supposed to be gods. We're all supposed to be the gods and the goddesses, and when it was so new for everybody. It was like we were trying to navigate and figure it out ourselves. But to us, he was such a spiritual being. He gave us so much that who could he be but a god? And the gods and the goddesses is not a new concept. I mean, the Romans lived it. Many people lived that concept. And he always said, I'm God, but so are you. That's what you're supposed to become. It was not, and he went through his own trial of fire with his path. That was his path. That whole thing with the Source family was his journey, his path. And he told us that from the beginning. He made a very clear statement in the beginning of the Source family. He said, this is my journey. He said, I don't know where it's going to take me. But he says, it's going to be fun. And he says, if you want to come along, you can. And we all agreed to that. And, of course, it then became a part of our journey. But our journey really didn't start until after he left the body and the family dispersed, and then